Y'all need to think more with your mouth closed. You the resort of a man not in the household. That's why you so violent and you seeking out foes. Nobody.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let us talk about Monday Night Raw from March the 21st, 2022. A show that wasn't bad, but nothing happened. So like, it was basically kind of last week, except again, and a little bit different. It started out very good. Now, there is not much in the way of news and notes. Undertaker was trending on Twitter again because he pissed off a lot of people. But we'll be talking about that in its own video. So we'll be talking about Undertaker upsetting people again in a different video. There's nothing else really worth talking about. Nothing major anyway. So let's get to Raw. So Kevin Owens trolls the world by coming out to Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme, and in doing so, he is dressed as Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I gotta admit, until I looked at the arms, from a distance, I was like, oh shit. And then I looked at his arms, I was like, wait a minute. And he didn't quite have the walk down, but he had some people fooled, and that was a fun segment because people were well trolled. There were some guys that were pretty upset that the glass broke and Kevin Owens came out. It was very well done. He was wearing a bald cap. He was wearing knee braces. For some reason, it was floppy. He was wearing the jean shorts. And he was wearing an Austin 316 shirt. And he cut the promo as if he was Stone Cold Steve Austin about Kevin Owens whipping his ass and all that kind of stuff. And it was fun. It was a really fun opening. And then the glass broke again, and Kevin Owens started to sell it. He was looking around and getting kind of scared, and the audience popped again. And then he started laughing, of course, because it was yet another troll by Kevin Owens. So it started out pretty good. This was fun. He started trying to do the beer thing, but the guy couldn't throw beer, but it was really just Kevin Owens with his chubby butterfingers. He couldn't catch the beer. So he told the guy, get in the ring. He's going to teach him how to throw a beer. The guy gets in the ring, gets a stunner. It was all fine. I think it was a pretty fun segment. Doing it at the beginning of the show was interesting. I think people probably would have more believed it at the beginning of the show than it would have been if it had been done at like 9 o'clock or something like that. I also like that they only pulled the trick twice. I was thinking they was going to go for a third time and kind of really overdo it, but they resisted doing it a third time. So this was fine. I like this. The Kevin Owens promo as Steve Austin was what it was. I miss the old days of guys mocking guys like this. Like when the DX, parody. I miss that kind of stuff. We need to go back to doing parodies. That would be fun. Granted they don't involve blackface or anything like that, but most of the parodies could be really fun if we allowed them to be. And this was one that could have been really fun. Stone Cold cosplay. It wasn't the most original thing in the world, but at least it was fun. It was a fun little trick on the Chicago crowd, and they took their L in peace and quiet. Well, not at all, not in quiet at all, but they took their L, that's for sure. So Seth Rollins, he's back because he still doesn't know what he's doing for WrestleMania, and there's loud Cody chants. Seth, of course, giggles and runs off to figure out what he's going to do. He interrupts the Mysterios and the Dirty Dogs who are having a match. He interrupts this match to try to cut a promo and saying that the world needs to hear what he has to say and that he wants a WrestleMania match, and not just any match, but a match that will live forever. But his microphone kept getting cut off, and eventually the microphone went out. He then goes to Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce tells him that acting like a lunatic is not going to give him what he wants. Sonya then says that they gave him a chance last week when it comes to winning Kevin Owens' spot at WrestleMania, and he lost. And then, he continued to berate them and said, to which Adam Pearce responded that they will see what they can do. I don't understand why they are having such a difficult time with this. AJ Styles' return is spoiled by Seth Rollins, who interrupts and says that rumors are fun as they're chanting Cody again at him, but rumors don't make moments. Then he said he was concerned about AJ Styles' health and he'd go home and get 100% healthy and come back after WrestleMania, for which he will take his spot and he will do what he should have done at Hell in a Cell, and that is end Edge's career at WrestleMania. AJ Styles says as long as he can walk, he will be there. To which Rollins was like, oh, as long as you can walk, eh? So, because he's desperate, Rollins made the challenge. He wants to take AJ Styles' spot. AJ was like, nope. And then Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville came out there and said they're going to give him one last chance. Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles for AJ Styles' WrestleMania spots. This allows AJ to really beat the crap out of Seth Rollins for a little bit before he eventually ran away. AJ Styles then went and stormed into the office and told Adam Pearce that he sucked at his job and he hasn't heard good things about Sonya Deville. He must not have been watching SmackDown. Like, I know it's crazy that guys say this stuff. Like, do you not watch the show? Dolph Ziggler literally on Twitter is like, part of his gimmick is that he doesn't watch the show. Like, if somebody asks him any question about the product, he says, I don't watch it. You know, I know that Brock Lesnar on TV, I don't watch the show, Paul. Why would I watch the show? But now it's trickled down to AJ Styles. Nobody watches the fucking product anymore. AJ has to know that Sonya Deville is the worst general manager in the history of all general managers. I'm sorry, middle management. She is the absolute shits. And he hasn't heard good things about her. AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins have a banger of a match, as only they could. These two guys are tremendous. They tell a hell of a story too. The story is that AJ is still sort of beat down from the concertos. He's not fully over, even though it's been 2 weeks. He's still not fully over. He's still kind of discombobulated. So the story is that he's weakened, so Seth Rollins has an easier chance of taking his spot. Pretty good story. All in all, pretty good story. As AJ is about to try to go for the phenomenal forearm, Edge hits him with a chair from behind twice. That is disqualification, and Edge cost Seth Rollins the match. Seth Rollins is then absolutely distraught. He goes around, starts throwing a tantrum, says this is bullshit, and he said it into the mic, and then he said it into the camera. This is bullshit. He starts tearing up stuff, trying to throw in a bit of a temper tantrum. Now, Seth Rollins has no more chances in literally days before WrestleMania. Next week is the last Raw before WrestleMania. And they have a lot of people have been kind of, they nitpick everything WWE does anyway. Rightfully so. It's a product on television. Nitpick it. Go away. Go ahead with it. But one of the things they've been talking about is how silly it is for WWE to do these what is your road to WrestleMania stories, because, speaking logically, Seth Rollins is one of the top guys in the company. Why wouldn't he have a match? And I was laughing as I was, just talking about it, like, all of these goobers who have matches at WrestleMania that he could have taken their spot. Like, you've got, like the Alpha Academy, they're going to be there, and look, the Alpha Academy, we talk about them later, but they're not bad, but they have a solid WrestleMania spot that he's not trying to take, but he's already failed to try to be in that spot. There's a bunch of people on this roster who are going to have a WrestleMania match, and I'm just like, and you couldn't get Seth Rollins on the card, but it happens. I was watching WrestleMania 8, and the Legion of Doom were there in the company. They weren't on the card, though. But they were present. They were in the building. They were there. But they didn't wrestle that night. And what had to be one of the most awkward things in the world. Like, you have one of the hottest tag teams of all time and still very hot on your company because they weren't in the company that long before WrestleMania 8. And they were, I think they might have been there for a year or so because they was at WrestleMania 7. And they weren't on the card. So it's not like sometimes WWE doesn't leave off top guys. Sometimes they do. Bayley was a top girl and they left her off of WrestleMania. She was a sort of a healthy scratch from the card. So it's not completely out of the ordinary. You know, Randy Savage was a healthy scratch for WrestleMania 9. He could work, but he wasn't on the show. He worked 10 and he worked 8, but he didn't work 9. So, you know, it happens from time to time that, you know, stars don't make the card. But if they're putting so much emphasis on it, and I still do like the idea that WrestleMania is like prom, and everybody wants to have themselves a date. And Seth Rollins is like, I'm just going to take somebody else's date because I can't find my own. You know, so, but at the end of the day, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's going to be Cody or it's going to be yada, yada, yada. To me, building up the story as what is Seth Rollins going to be doing at WrestleMania, it's not a bad idea. But the problem with that is that there is no story for whatever match he's going to end up having. I don't personally, if the Cody Rhodes thing is even going to happen, and like I said, I'm not going to speculate. I personally think Cody's going to show up the night after WrestleMania. But that story, it leads itself to, okay, so are we going to microwave something the week of WrestleMania? And Seth Rollins being a big enough star, like you could do this whole path to WrestleMania thing, and I don't know, maybe if it was still late February, you know, and he's kind of despondent because there is no real thing for him to do at WrestleMania. But I guess with the time bound of it makes the story more interesting. It's like one of the David Mamet questions, you know. We used to do this when we used to do like stories on breakdowns. Is one of the things is, you know, why now? And Seth Rollins spent the early part of the year goofing off, you know, trying to become the WWE champion. Then he spent, you know, February goofing off trying to be a tag team champion with Kevin Owens. Then he spent most of March goofing off trying to steal other people's title shots or other opportunities. And now as we get ready to, even though it's still a while before April, you know, he's finally going to find out who his opponent is and he's going to find his own path to WrestleMania. But it doesn't tell the story of that match. The story of Rollins rather, ends the moment he has an opponent. The moment time somebody stands across the ring from him, it's like, yes, I'm finally going to be on the card. And it's like, okay, now what? You have to actually wrestle this guy. You know, like, and how are we going to get people into this match if the story going into it is, yeah, Seth Rollins had to wrestle somebody. And that's the thing about it that doesn't make any sense. You know, instead of putting, like, you could have done this with like a lower card guy. Like if you could have done this same story with like R-Truth or something like that, it would have been a lot more fun. But now we're looking at guys like Finn Balor who have no match at WrestleMania. Damian Priest, who wasn't even on this show, has no match at WrestleMania. And if they do, they'll probably be on the kickoff, if we're being honest. And Seth Rollins should have had a match for sure. Like you could definitely have done this whole, what is my road to WrestleMania for the 24/7 crew? You know, how are we going to get on the show? But it seems like they don't even care about being on the show. So it's like, if Seth's not on the show, R-Truth doesn't have a chance in hell, right? But, okay. A lot of people they truly believe that we're going to end up with a Cody Rhodes thing. I don't know. To be quite honest, like I said it before, I don't really care. The first match was the Mysterios versus the Dirty Dogs. Miz joined them on commentary to scout the Mysterios. Like I said, Seth Rollins interrupted this match when his mic got cut off. Things went back to normal, and the Mysterios won the match as Dominic pinned Robert Roode, and I almost retched. Why is Robert Roode doing jobs for Dominic Mysterio, for Christ's fucking sake? And he got to wrestle Brian Breakker the next night on NXT. Why not at least protect him for that? You know, give the win to Brian. Who the fuck cares about Dominic? After afterwards, Miz and the Dirty Dogs attacked the Mysterios, knocked them down, beat them up some, and Miz snatched Ray's mask. And it's been a while since somebody has snatched Ray's mask. It's usually a great heel thing. Usually, Ray has a trick where you snatch his mask, he's wearing another one. This time, because he was wearing the bald mask, or the mask where you can see his head, it was a little bit easier. We knew that he wasn't wearing a second mask. So when Miz took it, it was pretty cool. It got instant heat too, like tremendous amount of heat. That just goes to show that they didn't overuse it. Like in Mexico and in certain American promotions, they overuse mask gimmicks. Like, I don't know how many times Phoenix's mask has been snatched in AEW. It happens almost all the time. The ripping of the masks, snatching of the masks, it happens way too often in American television. And so WWE, when they do it, it's usually very, it gets a good reaction. Let's put it like that. Because it's very rare that Ray gets his mask snatched. So this is pretty cool, and it works for this storyline, as The Miz and the Mysterios are all about humiliation, and this is about Miz humiliating the Mysterios, and he talked about this. He says, hey, Logan Paul, but I like his reasoning for taking the mask. This is really good. He said that Logan Paul wished for a Rey Mysterio mask as a kid. He always wanted one. So that's why he snatched this, but he did this to humiliate Rey Mysterio as Ray tried to humiliate him. So this is great, and they got some really excellent heat on The Miz. Really enjoyed that. That was fantastic. The Miz is very good, and that bothers a lot of people. Miz is very good, and that bothers people. Amos, I wrote down Amos is fighting two jabronis without knowing who these people were. And then found out it was Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz, and was like, oh God, well, it is what it is. It's still two jabronis. They jumped Amos at the start, running him into the ring post. He barely sold it. I don't think he even registered it too much. And then he just pinned him, stacked him, and pinned him. They both looked like fucking idiots afterwards. And I was just kind of like, did Apollo Crews touch somebody's butt in the office or something like that? Like, what did this guy do to get in this position? At this time last year, Apollo Crews was on his way to becoming the Intercontinental Champion. This year, him and another giant, Aziz, is being beaten up and stacked like cordwood for Amos. It is absolutely stupid. Everything about him has been completely and totally wrecked and bastardized and shit upon. And there's seemingly no real reason for it. There's seemingly nothing, absolutely nothing, that explains this. I haven't heard about anything about him having any heat. I haven't heard anything about, people souring on him or him having a bad attitude or him being a dickhead or, nothing. It's just, oh, we're going to fuck over Apollo Crews now. It's like, wow, after weeks of him not being on TV, we're just going to fuck him over. I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, Amos gets on the microphone. This also doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how big you are, or strong you are, or how many of you. I'm like, what? What? I'm guessing he was saying it doesn't matter how big, strong, or what number of you are. And then it says something about, if you have the balls to challenge me at WrestleMania. I was like, oh, perfect. He wants to have a match at WrestleMania. Okay, cool. Seth Rollins, this is a logic hole, right? Like, you have people who are still making open challenges at WrestleMania, and Seth Rollins is like, I have no opponent. That's a logic hole in your storytelling. Clearly Amos, they're building him up to win the Andre, which I'm guessing is going to be his role at WrestleMania. I saw quite a few people, I'm not going to say a lot, but quite a few saying that he was going to wrestle Bobby Lashley. And I said, look, unless Lashley is Wolverine, he's probably not going to be at WrestleMania. And then it makes no sense for him to come back and wrestle Amos. What's the heat? Amos is dominant and he's dominating. We're just going to see who's the more dominant. I guess that could work. It's simple. The Almighty versus the Colossus. They teased it to a little bit back when Lashley was the champion. I was actually interested in that if Lashley was going to defend the title, mainly because Omos is a huge threat to that title, if that was going to be the case. But if Lashley is just going to be a guy on the roster, and he's not going to be one of the champions or anything, well, I don't want to see this match. Save it. Just save it. Just have Omos win the Andre. Has he already won it? Oh no, that was Jay Uso. So yeah, just have Omos win the Andre. He can throw out a bunch of J Browns and win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and that can propel him to challenge him for titles and things later. Not really necessary for him to be a champion right now or to be a contender right now. But I was 100% in. I don't hate Omos. I just think that they're not doing the right thing with him. I think they had something with him as the big bodyguard who didn't talk and who was able to show some charisma and some personality hanging out with AJ Styles. But now they have just put him in Giant Gonzalez mode, where he's yelling into the microphone. He looks very weird, and he's going to make people regurgitate because it's too formulaic. I'm all for the tropes and I'm all for the archetypes, but he's a little too formulaic. And right now they haven't been building up anybody, literally anybody, for him to face that would make any sense. So I don't really see why he would have to have a match at WrestleMania. Just do the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. AJ Styles returned, and he says that he's had a lot of time off since the Concertos, and time can be dangerous if you have enough of it. And then he says that he watched the Edge attack over and over and over again. He doesn't want answers. He wants to kick Edge's teeth down his throat. Then, of course, we went into the whole Seth Rollins shenanigans, and we completely forgot about Edge. Edge would then hit AJ Styles with a chair later. So we're going with AJ Styles is going to be wounded walking into this match at WrestleMania. And I'm still very excited for this match because they're not overdoing it. It's Edge trying to up the ante. He wants AJ Styles weak walking into this match so he could take advantage of him. Classic Edge stuff too, by the way. As it's cunning. He knows who he wants. He knows what he wants. I was hoping to see a different side of AJ Styles, a reinvented AJ Styles, because he's kind of been looking the same. He's been in WWE for 6 years, believe it or not. He's been there 6 years already, and he's looked the same the entire time. So I was hoping that maybe AJ Styles would reinvent himself a little bit. But, alas, we have what we have. Ain't nothing wrong with AJ, but I would have been okay with, him doing something different too. It would make it less obvious that Edge was winning. Let's put it like that. So Zelina and Carmella start to argue. Zelina is mad that Carmella is not focused, and she's called her a bridezilla and said that her wedding is stupid. Carmella tried to prove that she was actually paying attention by noting the rules of the Fatal 4-Way, but she was texting or something like that. Then Zelina took her phone and smashed it. Took Carmella's phone and smashed it. This led to Carmella calling Zelina a hobbit, and she smacked Zelina. Zelina took off her crown and they started to fight. I was instantly like, oh boy, just strip them of the titles. We need to make a rule that if tag team partners start fighting each other, they're automatically stripped of the titles. If they argue with one another, people just need to be like, look, if you make contact, you shove him, you smack him, whatever, you're stripped of the belts. It just makes no fucking sense that this is constantly occurring in WWE. Then, oh, it's a work, guys. It was all a ruse. Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, rather. I wouldn't want to do Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. That's a bad idea. Versus Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Natalya and Shayna Baszler actually win by hitting the heart attack on Liv Morgan. Carmella was outside the ring complaining to Corey Graves about her fight with Zelina, and Corey Graves was absolutely simping hard. Just simping very, very hard. Zelina then crashed her scepter into Rhea Ripley's back. And while Carmella took some cheap shots on Natalya and Shayna, they got into the ring and faced against each other. The crowd told them to fight, and instead they hugged, letting everybody know it was all a ruse. It was all a big joke for the cameras. They're not really fighting. They're on the same page. Okay. I don't like that Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley lost, because they are a team that has some actual chemistry, and it seems like they're actually building up something. And I like that Liv Morgan is almost completely buying into this, you know, in terms of really playing the babyface in peril perfectly. You know, the small underdog babyface. This almost feels like a team they put some real thought into, and not something they threw away in the last minute. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley fit like a fucking glove. This is what it should have been from the beginning. It's not an oddball pairing at all. These feel like they're two friends that hang out with each other all the time anyway. And then there's also and I know people are going to cringe when I say this, there's also the queer baiting concept to it that has made a lot of people kind of like it. You know, the whole Rhea as, you know, the daddy sort of situation in this Liv Morgan thing. I've seen too many people say it. I've seen a lot of people who don't normally talk about this or talk like this mention how much Rhea Ripley is playing into the homoeroticism of her and Liv Morgan's tag team. While Natalya and Shayna are just basically bruisers. Natalya Natalya is on WrestleMania and Seth Rollins isn't. That should tell you the scope of what we got going on here. It's an absolute disaster. It's a disaster. They showed a clip of the Bella Twins, and I was like, well, okay. I thought the Bella Twins were going to get added to the match. I was like, oh God, they're going to throw the Bellas in there just to fuck with us. But they didn't. Natalya and Shayna Baszler winning is an absolute atrocity. It's a crime against God. There's no way Natalya should be winning matches. They should force Natalya into retirement. For fuck's sake. Somebody said they wanted, I forget who it was. I think it was some rando. Say that we should put Natalya into the Hall of Fame while she's still wrestling. I'm like, what? What? Natalya is like Ivory. You wait till she's 15 years out of the business before you put her into the Hall of Fame. There ain't no rush for Natalya, for Christ's sake. Ugh, what's wrong with y'all? Why y'all love the Anvil so much? I understand, like, hey, you know, Natalya is a great little soldier. She stuck around through thick and thin. She's been there since, 2007 or something like that. But at some point, you got to realize she's just taking up roster space. And what happened to Xia Li, who kicked Natalya's head off like a couple of weeks ago? Why she not involved in this? And she had a tag team partner in Aaliyah, at least somebody that she was protecting. And that could have been interesting. And now that's over. Now she's gone. Xia Li's off TV again. I think she's wrestling on Main Event. It's like, I don't get it. It seems like Xia Li and Shotzi, like they have an idea of what they want to do with them. They just don't have the balls to pull the trigger. And now that they have Ronda Rousey, they don't really need baby faces. So Xia Li and Aaliyah are fucked, because how are they going to wrestle on this show as baby faces when they're almost all no heels on the show? The only heel on SmackDown other than Natalya and Shayna Baszler, who are in the tag team match, is Sonya Deville. So there are no heels in Shotzi, and they're not even using her. So if you're Shotzi, who are you going to wrestle? All the baby faces are rounded up. Ronda is wrestling Charlotte. Sasha Banks and Naomi are in the tag team. And that's pretty much the entire fucking division right there. And Aaliyah is not even on the show. So who are you going to wrestle? Xia Li? And I'm not even talking about at WrestleMania. I'm just talking about period. Like, there's no matches to be had outside of you have one match with Xia Li and then, 100 matches with Xia Li? It's a really awful booking of that division. It is absolutely terrible. And I'm pretty sure you're probably going to be like, there is so many other people on that roster that nobody talks about. And I'm pretty sure it is, but they're in the Dewdrop, Nikki Ash situation now where they just kind of hanging out. Alexa Bliss is hanging out. They're just hanging out, just sitting there like, oh, okay. She's another big star who's not going to be at WrestleMania. They've been pushing her consistently since 2007. No, that's 2007, 2017. So about 5 or 6 years, and now she's not going to be at WrestleMania. Weird stuff. Really weird stuff. And it is what it is, man. They just trying very hard to make certain people fit, and then they're also just kind of throwing their hands up on others, and none of it makes any sense. So Becky Lynch comes out there and she cuts a promo. And for starters, let's talk about how Becky Lynch is dressed. I mean, she's obviously having blindfold matches with her wardrobe right now. And she came out wearing these almost Geordie from Star Trek like shades, and they were awful. They were very, very bizarre on her face. So, anyway, let's talk about her promo. Her promo was actually very good in terms of it told a hell of a story, and it set up perfectly the match for WrestleMania. She used the old adage, this biblical adage, what will it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? For Becky Lynch, she said it profited her the women's championship, which she won from Bianca Belair in 26 seconds at SummerSlam. And she said she was willing to sell her soul for this title because the crowd chose Bianca over her. And she realized that, and I really liked the importance she put on the title here. For instance, she called the title precious, like the thing from Lord of the Rings. I don't know nothing about Lord of the Rings. But she talked about every day that she had to surrender the title is, without being beaten was painful, even though it was her own choice because she was the one who was having the baby. And she talked about how, terrible it was to be away from this title, having never been beaten for it, and said that now I am the power, I am the glory, I am the prize, I am at the top of the mountain. And that, she meant to injure Bianca Belair, knowing that Bianca Belair did not mean to injure her. And says that, she said that she was going to come after Bianca's hair, then Bianca didn't show up. And says that, that if I take what means the most to you, meaning her hair, you would lose a little bit of your soul. And they really put some emphasis on this title and what this feud really means, and Bianca not being there because she got busted up her hyoid bone, which sounds like some absolute bullshit. But, I'm guessing people have a hyoid bone. I didn't Google it. I'm not that much of a dork. If it was released on Twitter and it's not legit, I don't care. Let me live in the kayfabe world for a little while. She got a fucking busted up hyoid bone. I expect it to be bandaged up or taped up or something when she comes back. In any event, I like this promo. I thought the promo was very good. Becky Lynch is really in the bag as far as being megalomaniacal and so far as over hyping everything that she does. But she also grounds it in reality. And she talked about, hey, I had to give up everything. I had to throw away things. And this has been a routine piece of the Becky Lynch story since she came back. All the things that she had to sacrifice in order to be the champion, in order to be the one, in order to carry the title, in order to get here, all the things that she had to let go. There was a promo, I guess, several weeks ago where she talked about, taking time away from her child and she should be at home with her baby and all this sort of stuff. Yet she's here and the people don't appreciate that she's here. And so they're really telling you this title means it is of the utmost importance to Becky Lynch. They have done such an amazing job with this feud that is almost embarrassing what they're doing with Ronda and Charlotte. Charlotte is a 13-time champion. She's been beaten and won the title back 100 times. This is the kind of stuff she should be doing. Because Charlotte's almost entire character centers around her being the champion. Becky Lynch has dynamics that she doesn't really need the title. But the title is centered in this storyline, considering Bianca Belair lost the title to Becky Lynch. And I wish it was the same fucking belt. It's not the same belt, but it's the same two people fighting over a title, you know? So if it was the same belt and Becky Lynch had just been the champion since SummerSlam and it was still SmackDown or whatever, this would have a whole lot more meaning to it. But this is what the belt that Becky was granted because, you know, her and Charlotte was drafted to different shows. So, but it's still the belt that she never lost. So that's also one of the, I think when she was Becky 2 belts, she actually got beat for the SmackDown belt, right? Somebody correct me. I'm pretty sure she did lose one of those belts. I'm pretty sure it was the SmackDown belt and she lost in like a triple threat match or something. So the Raw belt is the one that she never lost. You know, so maybe the story makes more sense than I think, you know, with her being the Raw champion. And maybe that's why she was moved to Raw. And so she could say specifically, I never lost this particular belt. Yeah, because when she when she got pregnant and they did the Money in the Bank thing with Asuka, it was the Raw Women's Championship. Yeah, so she never lost the Raw Women's title. So this actually hits kind of different. You know, this is the exact title that she had to give up. You know, it's not the exact title she won from Bianca Belair, but it is the exact title that she had to give up when she got pregnant. So you have there that weight to this story, and they're really building it up strong, and they're really building it up as if this thing was the most important thing in the world, and she only gave it up for something that she thought was far more important, which was being a mom and having a baby and all this kind of stuff. And now she realizes she's going to try to have them both, you know, and then you see her also going through this back and forth where the sacrifice of everything that she had to give up in order to be the champion, you know, she sacrificed all this stuff to come back to be the champion. But she had to sacrifice being the champion to leave and make all that stuff possible in the first place. So it's a very interesting character dynamic when you look at Becky Lynch and her last 2 years, you know, in wrestling. It's been very good. And it's building up completely to her doing this job to Bianca Belair at WrestleMania and putting Bianca Belair over strong, you know, and this needs to be the main event, if we're being honest. You know, Ronda and Charlotte should probably start the show. I don't care who wins. I don't think anybody cares who wins. I think at this point we have to dictate that the story of a match is more important than the name value. And that is absolutely the case. I think that if you were to do a Google trend or a Google search of which one is more important, I think people are far more interested in this. You know, now, the only thing I would think about as far as maybe they wouldn't be is that SmackDown has more viewers than Raw. So maybe there will be more people who are actually watching. And, you know, the women are not being in the main event spot on SmackDown, are not losing a lot of viewers either. It's holding pretty steady, you know, at the 2 million mark as far as viewers are concerned. So Ronda and Charlotte aren't, you know, bleeding viewers, you know, so I don't know. But if it were me, I would think the Bianca Belair climbs the mountain and beats the unbeatable Becky Lynch. Beats her clean in the middle of the ring. That is the WrestleMania main event story, as far as I'm concerned. You know, it would be the same if it was men. And I think that, to be quite honest, it probably should be. You know? And that's really the kind of stuff that WrestleMania main events are all about. You know? So I'm really kind of just distraught that they're probably going to put this on in the middle of the fucking card when, you know, it's not going to be in the death spot where nobody cares. But the work that Becky Lynch is putting in here is very impressive. And she's been very good. You know, I've been very, very, very good. Very good. I'm not a fan of how she's dressing, but her and Seth Rollins have decided to lose their minds collectively. So there that go. We can finally move on now. I'm done talking about Becky Lynch. So Austin Theory, he's back, and he says that Pat McAfee is a dumb jock who's got no business in the ring with him. And if he talks to his mentor, Mr. McMahon, Pat McAfee might not have a job after WrestleMania. Then he says he's got so many selfies of Finn Balor laid out that he got no more room for storage, but he's going to make room for one more because they're going to wrestle again tonight. So Pat McAfee comes out there as a special commentator. He basically just gets in Austin Theory's face all night, cheers Finn Balor. Pat McAfee is annoying, being very annoying. He's crotch chopping at Austin Theory, all kinds of stuff. Finn Balor ends up beating him with a small package as Pat McAfee distracted him constantly. And Finn Balor is a guy who has no match at WrestleMania. They have not announced Finn Balor will be wrestling Damian Priest. I'm guessing if they do, it'll be on the kickoff show. And to be quite honest, they probably should bump some of them tag team title matches to the kickoff show. I think Boogs and Usos will probably get bumped to the pre-show. And it will probably be better if you can't put Randy Orton on the pre-show. I mean, you just can't. I'm really kind of teetering on the women. You could put the women's tag team championships on the pre-show. Well, you can't put Sasha Banks on the pre-show either, can you? Can you? Do you think you'd be able to get away with putting Sasha Banks on the pre-show without people absolutely losing their fucking minds and ruining the internet? Now, it'd probably be a great smart tier segment, but I don't think you'd be able to get away with putting Sasha Banks on the pre-show or Randy Orton. So what the fuck are you going to do? Who's going to be on the pre-show of at least one of these nights? And I'm guessing it's probably going to be Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And that sucks because those guys could really go out there and kill, and they deserve a full crowd to watch them do their thing. You know, they've taken the foot off the gas as far as this is concerned, and that's the shits. That's the drizzling shits. But then again, there are nights after WrestleMania. I just think Finn Balor is a WrestleMania player, and him not being on the card fucking sucks. You know, that's just me though. Now, speaking of guys I would take off the card, RK Bro defeated the Alpha Academy. It's just another match. They've had like 100 matches in the last month. Did you see the Alpha Academy Snickers commercial? They're like, these guys are doing Snickers commercials. Holy shit. They're trying to make them a thing. And they did all of their gimmicks in the commercial. They did the shoosh, they did everything. I was just like, oh God. It's turning Gable into a fucking catchphrase machine. He says one line and everything else is a catchphrase. Almost everything he does is catchphrases now. I was like, ooh, this is bad. This is real bad. It's good for his career because at least he's on TV. He's being pushed. They're trying to get him to sell some merchandise. They're putting him in commercials. Great for his career. But it's going to be bad for his dialogue because his dialogue ain't going to be nothing but fucking catchphrases from now on. And I cannot stand when people talking catchphrases. It's awful. It's awful shit. His number one guy. I'm glad he found a fucking personality. Thank God, thank God Gable found his personality. Man, hopefully he can get over that height requirement because he's a legitimate dude and I really like him. Anyway, after the RK Bro victory, the Street Profits made the save as Otis was beating up Riddle and Randy Orton once again. Then the Street Profits attacked Gable and Otis, and they gave Gable a elevated DDT, like a 3D DDT, and it looked ugly, and it looks like Gable might have gotten hurt. And then Montez Ford botched his frog splash. It looked ugly, and I was like, what the fuck is going on with the Street Profits? What is going on? First, Montez Ford fucks up his frog splash and destroys Randy Orton. It was just a couple of weeks ago. And now he not only fucked up the DDT, which looks like it might have hurt Chad Gable. Because I didn't see Gable again after that DDT. Hopefully he's okay. And then he fucked up the frog splash again. By this time he was too short. He got a lot of air on it. But this time his fucking body didn't even hit the guy. I was like, oh, what the fuck is going on with these guys? Why are the Street Profits trash all of a sudden? They getting kind of sloppy out there. And these are not rookies. These are guys who was nailing it, not too long ago. And I'm not a fan of it. They need to tighten up. This WrestleMania season, more people watching than ever before. They need to tighten the fuck up. You know, this is not good. This is I think the second time in 2 or 3 outings that they've botched something majorly and maybe hurt somebody. That's not gonna fly, dog. They need to fix that shit. Tighten that shit up quick. Dana Brooke and Reggie versus Tozawa and Tamina. Do I even need to talk about this? No, let's move on. That was the rest of the show. That was it. Dana Brooke and Reggie and Tamina. I'm tired. I hate that shit. It's awful. It's awful television because it amounts to nothing really. Them being in centaur position, locking up was funny though. I found that to be funny, but the rest of that stuff is absolute basura. The last thing I guess is Veer Mahan will finally appear on April the 4th. It's like, happy birthday to me. Veer Mahan will be there on Raw. Yay. Look, unless he wins the fucking world title on his first night, I don't see how Veer Mahan being on Raw could be anything other than everybody's going to laugh. You know, I haven't heard any great things about all these matches he's been having on main event. And they need to have a real good role for him. Because if he comes out as just random Indian guy with the markings and the bangles and the loincloth or whatever the fuck it is he was wearing, this is going to be an absolute shitstorm. If he comes out as Veer Mahan that they've been seeing on main event, it's going to be the shits. He needs to be something else. He needs to be doing something else. You know, he needs to be. Well, they've been doing this since the draft. The draft was in October? So it's been 6 months of this, and you can't just have him come in the ring and beat up a job guy. He's got to come in to a major spot. You know, like, this guy has to come in and be a player. You can't have him just come in and finger fuck around in the first match. But that's what they're going to do. Because I don't think they really give a shit about Veer Mahan. Even though he speaks perfect English as far as I know. And he's the $1 million arm. To me, it would have been a perfect idea for them to lean into that. You know, that should have been his gimmick. I know they probably want to give him a stereotype gimmick to get him over as an Indian. But fuck, you know, no. Why? You know, like, let's just do what we know. Use his backstory and, you know, try to get him in there as much as possible. Turn it into a character motivation as much as possible. Start wasting everybody's time and effort with this shit. I also heard Elias was coming back soon. I'll believe it when I see it. I know that they said that Elias's ideas was too close to Randy Savage. And I could see that because he looked a lot like Randy Savage. And I don't think that was him doing that on purpose. I think he probably just looks like a guy, and they was like, no, you look too much like the guy. You know? But I also heard he was supposed to be changing his name. Maybe Punk Rock Jesus will come back. You know, they're not gonna let him get away with Jesus anymore. Maybe Punk Rock Elias. Who knows? But that's Raw. No revelations of any kind occurred. Nothing major happened. There were no big returns. There was a couple of good matches. You know, Austin Theory and Finn Balor was a good match, except for all the distractions. The Mysterios and Dirty Dogs actually wasn't bad. AJ Styles and Seth Rollins blew the roof off the joint, with the exception of the goddamn disqualification. So there's stuff to like, but it wasn't necessarily a good show. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.